Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into what makes those elite performers tick. The ones who seem unstoppable.
That relentless drive, right?
Exactly. And we're lucky enough to have you here to guide us. We'll be looking at Tim Grover's Relentless. He's the guy who trained Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, so he knows a thing or two about pushing limits.
Oh, yeah. He's definitely worked with the best of the best. His insights are incredible.
So the book really dives into this idea that relentlessness, it's not just about being naturally gifted.
Right. It's a mindset. It's about constantly pushing yourself beyond what you think you're capable of.
And never settling for good enough, right?
Exactly. Like you can have all the talent in the world, but without that relentless drive, you'll never reach your full potential.
He actually tells a story in the book about an athlete, a top performer, who snuck out in the middle of the night to go train.
Wow.
Yeah. He just felt like he was losing focus and needed to get back in the zone, even if it meant leaving his team in the middle of the night.
That's intense.
It really highlights the extreme dedication that these individuals have.
Yeah.
It makes you think, are we all maybe settling a bit too much? Just coasting in some areas of our lives?
It's a good question to ask ourselves for sure. What are those areas where we might be holding back? Where could we be pushing ourselves harder?
Absolutely. Now, another concept Grover talks about is the power of instinct. He's not a big fan of overthinking things.
Trusting your gut, right?
Yeah, but it's not just about being impulsive. He emphasizes that it's about honing that instinct through experience and preparation.
Like a lion stalking its prey. Silent, focused, and knowing instinctively when to strike.
Exactly. He has this great anecdote about Larry Bird. During the '88 All-Star Game, Larry Bird never even watched a single shot after it left his hand. Yeah. He just knew it was going in.
Wow, that's some serious confidence in your instincts. It makes you wonder if we're sometimes getting in our own way by overanalyzing every little thing.
Now, this next concept is where things get interesting and maybe a little controversial. He talks about embracing your dark side.
Yeah, that one definitely raises some eyebrows.
But to be clear, he's not talking about being evil or anything like that. It's about tapping into that raw drive, that intensity that can push you beyond your limits.
Like the classic Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? Tapping into that hidden power within.
Exactly. He uses Tiger Woods as an example. His exceptional performance, fueled by a dark side that eventually, when exposed, led to his downfall.
It's a delicate balance, isn't it? Harnessing that energy without letting it consume you.
It seems like it's a power that needs to be carefully channeled, maybe finding a healthy outlet for that intensity.
Definitely. It's about recognizing that everyone has that dark side, but the key is understanding it and using it constructively.
Now, let's talk about how all this plays out in different personality types. Grover outlines 3 archetypes. We've got the cooler, the closer, and the cleaner.
So the cooler, they're more cautious.
Yeah, the careful observer.
Right. They prefer to follow rather than lead, seeking direction and avoiding risks. They can handle pressure, but generally prefer to let others take charge.
Then we have the closer. This is where he uses LeBron James as an example. They thrive under pressure, but they need things to be predictable.
Makes sense. LeBron is known for delivering in those clutch moments, but he excels when he has a clear plan and knows what's expected.
Exactly. And finally, we have the cleaner. This is where Michael Jordan really embodies this archetype.
So what sets the cleaner apart?
They're the ones who get called in when nobody else can handle the situation. They thrive in chaos, bend the rules when necessary.
The ultimate competitor.
And laser focused on the end result. They make decisions, not suggestions, completely unflappable under pressure.
It's a pretty intense approach. I can see how that would be incredibly effective in high-stakes environments, but how does that translate to everyday life?
It's a good question. While we might not need to be quite as ruthless in our daily lives, there are definitely valuable takeaways.
Right. It's about learning from that strategic thinking, the decisiveness, the ability to stay calm under pressure.
Now, let's dive into some specific traits of the cleaner mentality that Grover highlights. Some of these might seem a little controversial or even counterintuitive, especially outside the world of professional sports.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So first up, they thrive on pressure, using it as fuel to push themselves harder. Michael Jordan, perfect example. He seemed to relish those high-stakes moments.
It's amazing how some people just seem to excel under pressure, while others crumble. For those of us who aren't wired like Michael Jordan, how do we cultivate that ability to thrive under pressure?
That's a great question. Grover talks about how it starts with changing your perspective. Instead of viewing pressure as a negative force that's going to crush you, see it as an opportunity.
Challenge to rise to.
Exactly. It's about reframing that mental narrative.
I like that, turning that pressure into a source of motivation.
Another characteristic is that they don't just compete, they attack. He uses examples like Michael Jordan's dominance over his own teammates.
Wow.
And Dwyane Wade's strategic plays in the 2012 finals, where Miami ultimately defeated Oklahoma City.
So how do we apply that attack mentality in a way that's, ethical and productive?
It's about focusing your energy strategically, identifying your goals, your strengths, even your opponent's weaknesses, and then going after what you want.
Being proactive and making things happen rather than just reacting.
Exactly. Cleaners also make decisions, not suggestions. They take ownership, act decisively.
No time for waffling.
Right. Instead of getting bogged down in endless analysis, which again ties back to that idea of trusting your instinct.
It's about trusting yourself to make the right call.
He tells this story about Michael Jordan brushing off pre-game strategy sessions. He knew what he needed to do.
He had that inner confidence.
Grover also shares a story about having to make a game-time decision at a youth basketball camp when thousands more kids showed up than expected.
Oh, wow.
He didn't have time to overthink it. He just had to act. Sometimes you just got to trust your gut and go for it. Now, this next trait, it might be tough for some of us. Grover says cleaners trust very few people.
That sounds a little harsh.
It's not about being distrustful of everyone, but it's about being discerning about who you let into your inner circle.
Choosing your team wisely.
Exactly. He uses Michael Jordan's relationship with Steve Kerr as an example.
Yeah.
They had this mutual respect and trust that came from pushing each other to be better.
It's about having those people in your life who challenge you, who support you, but also hold you accountable.
And finally, perhaps the most intriguing and challenging trait of the cleaner. They don't celebrate achievements. They want more.
Always striving for the next level.
They're never satisfied, always looking ahead to the next challenge. He gives examples like Michael Jordan immediately focusing on the next season after winning a championship, and Kobe Bryant's legendary dedication to constant improvement.
So they're not resting on their laurels. It's about that constant pursuit of growth.
It makes you think, what could you achieve with that mindset? What would you relentlessly pursue?
That's a great question to reflect on. What are our big goals, and are we approaching them with that same level of intensity and drive?
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground already in this first part of our deep dive into Relentless. What are some key takeaways for our listeners so far?
Well, first and foremost, relentlessness. It's a mindset, not just some innate quality. We can all cultivate it, regardless of our talent or circumstances.
It's about pushing beyond our comfort zones, never being satisfied with good enough.
We've also learned that everyone has that dark side, that raw energy that can be harnessed for good. It's about finding healthy outlets for that intensity, using it to fuel our pursuits.
And finally, the importance of trusting our instincts, making decisive decisions. Cleaners don't get stuck in overthinking. They make a call and move forward.
It's a powerful lesson for all of us, learning to trust our gut and take action. So you know what's really interesting about Grover's whole approach?
What's that?
It's not just about mental toughness. He puts so much emphasis on the physical side of being relentless.
Makes sense, right? I mean, he's trained these elite athletes, pushing their bodies to the absolute limit.
Exactly. And he argues that physical dominance, that can make you great.
Okay.
But it's that mental dominance, that's what makes you unstoppable.
I like that.
And the way to train your mind,
Yeah.
he believes, is by actually training your body.
It's like taking that mind over matter thing to a whole new level.
Yeah, pushing your body beyond what you think it's capable of.
And letting that strength translate to your mental game.
He calls it attack athletics. His training philosophy?
Attack athletics.
Yeah, and it's not for the faint of heart.
Definitely not for the casual gym goer, I'm guessing.
He thinks easy workouts, like comfortable workouts, they're almost insulting.
Really?
Yeah, he wants you to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
So it's about pushing past those limits.
Building resilience,
Yeah.
so that when you step out of the gym, everything else feels easier by comparison.
I can see that.
But this relentless pursuit, it's not just for his clients.
What do you mean?
He applies it to himself, too.
Oh, interesting.
Always pushing himself, looking for new ways to challenge his athletes.
And he's not afraid to call people out on their BS, is he?
Oh, definitely not. He tells them exactly what they need to hear.
Even if it's not what they want to hear.
Especially if it's not what they want to hear. He's not there to be their friend. He's there to make them the best.
There's a story in the book about a player refusing to get in the cold tub.
Oh, I remember that one.
And Grover's just like, Get in the fucking tub.
Yeah, no messing around. That's Tim Grover.
But I guess that's what makes him so effective.
Right. He's not afraid to push people, challenge them, hold them accountable.
And the results speak for themselves. He's worked with some of the greatest.
Makes you wonder, could we all benefit from a bit of that tough love?
Maybe not the yelling part necessarily.
Right, but that unwavering commitment to excellence, that's something we can all learn from.
Absolutely. Speaking of excellence, Grover also talks a lot about the importance of your team.
The people you surround yourself with.
But only after they've earned your trust.
Yeah.
Right?
It's about building a team of people who are just as committed as you are. People who will push you and never let you settle.
He uses the example of Michael Jordan and Steve Kerr.
Oh, yeah. Kerr wasn't afraid to stand up to Jordan, even if it meant
getting punched in the face.
Which he did, but that's actually what earned him Jordan's respect.
Interesting.
They built this deep trust and understanding.
But it's not just about who you trust.
What else?
It's also about recognizing those who aren't pulling their weight.
Oh, yeah, he's got no tolerance for slackers.
He shares how Jordan wouldn't hesitate to call out teammates who weren't giving 100%.
What would he say?
Something like, "You're not playing tonight. Fine. I'll play for all 5 of us."
Wow, that's a powerful statement.
He wouldn't let their lack of effort bring him down.
Held them accountable.
But he also held himself to an even higher standard.
It's a good lesson.
What's that?
We can't control the actions of others.
True.
But we can control our own response.
Absolutely. We can choose to rise above it.
Now, going back to this whole idea of pressure,
Yeah.
I found Grover's perspective on it really fascinating.
How so?
He has this great quote. He says, "Pressure can bust pipes, but it can also make diamonds."
I love that. It's all about how you view it.
Right. Seeing pressure as a catalyst for growth.
He talks about how Dwayne Wade was incredible at managing pressure, even play with injuries. And Michael Jordan, he'd seek out pressure.
Really?
Because he knew it would bring out his best.
Most of us try to avoid pressure at all costs.
Right. But maybe there's something to be said for leaning into it.
Maybe so.
So another key aspect of this whole relentless mindset is taking ownership.
Being accountable for your actions.
Grover's a big believer in making decisions, not suggestions.
Absolutely. He has zero tolerance for indecision.
Or passing the buck.
He tells a story about having to completely change plans for a youth basketball camp. Thousands more kids showed up than they expected.
Oh, wow.
He didn't have time to overthink it.
Just had to act. So it's not just about making the decision. It's about taking responsibility for it.
Owning it.
Grover says, if you did it, own it. If you said it, stand by it.
No excuses.
No blaming others.
He believes that's how you build your reputation.
By being someone people can rely on.
Someone who owns their actions and decisions.
It's a good lesson for all of us.
Yeah.
It's easy to make excuses when things go wrong.
But it takes real strength to own up to our mistakes and learn from them.
And to trust ourselves.
Because often we overthink things.
When really our gut often knows the answer.
He says, make a choice, or a choice will be made for you.
Meaning?
Inaction is a choice in itself.
Speaking of choices, Grover has some very strong opinions about hard work.
Oh, he does not believe in shortcuts.
He actually calls them insults.
He does. He says, when did hard work become a skill? It doesn't take talent to work hard. Anyone can do it.
And he has a point. So many of us are looking for the easy way out.
But real success.
It comes from putting in the work.
He's seen it firsthand with those athletes he's trained. The Michael Jordans, the Kobe Bryants of the world.
Right, they're not just talented.
They're the ones who work the hardest.
And Grover talks about the importance of being prepared.
Doing the work in advance.
He says, the work is about testing yourself and preparing all your options. So when you're performing, there's nothing to think about.
So that when the pressure is on,
you can just trust your instincts and react.
He uses this analogy of a boxer.
Yeah.
Who's trained so hard that when he sees an opening, he doesn't even have to think, he just reacts.
It becomes automatic.
That's the goal.
So now let's dig a little deeper into this whole concept of the cleaner.
It's more than just being a ruthless competitor.
So how does Grover describe it?
He describes the cleaner as someone who's not afraid to get their hands dirty, to bend the rules if they have to get results.
They're decisive, take ownership.
Laser focused on the end goal.
And Michael Jordan's a prime example, right?
Absolutely. But it's not just about being cutthroat. Cleaners have a deep understanding of themselves.
Their strengths, weaknesses.
Exactly. And they're not afraid to exploit the weaknesses of others.
He mentions how Jordan would intentionally intimidate his opponents.
Wow.
Like showing up in their locker room, just to say hello.
Mind games.
He knew his presence would rattle them.
It was all part of his strategy.
It's fascinating how he combined that ruthlessness with a really keen awareness of when to delegate.
Yeah, he didn't try to compete with everyone.
He found their weakness, attacked.
But he also knew when to step back and let others take the lead.
Like when he passed the ball to Steve Kerr for the winning shot in the '97 finals.
Recognized Kerr's strength in that moment.
And this applies to life beyond basketball, too.
Oh, absolutely.
We need to learn when we're the best person for the job.
And when it's better to let someone else shine.
Yeah. So another defining characteristic of the cleaner.
What's that?
They don't celebrate their achievements.
They're always looking ahead.
Grover says they don't celebrate because they always want more.
Never satisfied.
He uses the example of Jordan winning 6 NBA championships.
But after each one,
Right back in the gym, preparing for the next season.
that relentless pursuit of excellence.
It's a pretty intense way to live.
It is, but it's also incredibly inspiring.
It makes you think about what you could achieve with that mindset.
Tapping into that fire within.
That drive that propels you forward.
But Grover's clear that this cleaner mentality,
Yeah.
it's not for everyone.
It can be a lonely path.
It can be. And demanding.
Cleaners often have to make sacrifices, push away people who don't get their drive.
It takes a certain personality, a certain level of commitment.
But for those who are drawn to it,
It can be incredibly rewarding.
it's about tapping into that relentless pursuit of excellence, pushing yourself to be the best you can be.
Exactly. And never settling for anything less. Now, one of the things that really stood out to me
What's that?
was Grover's perspective on failure.
Uh-huh.
He doesn't believe in it.
What do you mean?
He says, there is no failure. There are quits.
Wow. That's powerful.
He believes that as long as you keep going,
Uh-huh.
you can't fail.
Yeah,
You might encounter setbacks,
sure.
but you'll eventually achieve your goals.
He uses the example of Michael Jordan, all the obstacles he faced.
But he never let them stop him.
It's about perseverance,
It's not about avoiding failure
but learning from it.
and using it to make you stronger.
He talks about his own experience, suffering a serious knee injury.
That ended his basketball career.
But he used that experience to fuel his passion for training.
Found a way to turn what seemed like a failure into an opportunity.
It's a good reminder that the path to success.
It's not always linear.
And speaking of challenges,
What about them?
Grover emphasizes this idea of controlling your own destiny.
Taking ownership of your life.
He says you control your body, it does not control you. You shut out the fear and emotion and physical stress, and you do the thing you dread,
It's about making things happen.
not waiting for permission.
He uses the example of Michael Jordan refusing to let his coach dictate how he played.
Jordan knew his own capabilities.
It's a reminder that we have the power to create our own reality.
Success is something you earn,
It takes hard work and dedication.
and it takes having a vision.
Knowing where you want to go.
Grover says, ask yourself where you are now and where you want to be instead. Ask yourself what you're willing to do to get there. Then make a plan to get there. Act on it.
It's about having a roadmap.
And being willing to make sacrifices to reach your goal.
He mentions how Jordan would shut down everything outside of basketball during the season.
No distractions. That level of commitment, it's what leads to extraordinary things.
Now, Grover also has some really interesting insights about instinct and success.
He's a big believer in trusting your gut.
He believes instinct is innate, but it can be honed through experience.
He says, when you're great, you trust your instincts. When you're unstoppable, your instincts trust you.
It's about developing that deep understanding of yourself,
So you can react instinctively in any situation.
like a lion stalking its prey.
Right, the lion doesn't think, it just reacts.
We all have those gut feelings.
We often ignore them.
Grover believes trusting our instincts is essential for success.
He says, stop thinking, stop waiting. You already know what to do.
It's about quieting that inner critic.
And listening to your gut.
Now, I found his take on fear to be particularly interesting.
In what way?
He doesn't believe in it.
He doesn't believe in fear.
Well, he says fear has two meanings. Forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. The choice is yours.
I like that.
He believes fear is just a perception,
Okay.
a mental construct.
No, it's not real.
Well, he talks about how Michael Jordan wasn't actually fearless.
Right.
He just chose to face his fears head on.
So it's about acknowledging that fear is natural.
But it doesn't have to control us.
He says when you're in the zone, you shut out everything else and control the uncontrollable.
Finding that flow state where fear doesn't have a hold.
We all face challenges, but it's how we respond to those challenges that defines us.
Now, another crucial part of that relentless mindset is adaptability.
Being able to adjust as needed.
Exactly. Grover emphasizes how important it is to be able to adjust your strategy.
As the situation changes.
He describes the 3 archetypes in terms of their adaptability.
Starting with the cooler.
He says, a cooler is careful. He waits to be told what to do, watches to see what everyone else is doing, and then follows the leader. He's a mediator, not a decision maker. He's not taking sides unless he's forced to. He can handle a certain amount of pressure, but he prefers to let someone else take the lead.
So the cooler plays it safe.
To avoid risks.
Then there's the closer.
He says, a closer can handle a lot of pressure. He'll get the job done if you put him in the right situation and tell him exactly what you need him to do. He'll study all sorts of scenarios so he can anticipate what might happen, but he's uncomfortable when faced with something unexpected. He seeks attention and credit, and he's very aware of what everyone else is doing and what others think of him. He loves the rewards and perks associated with his fame and would choose financial security over winning or success.
So a closer's good with pressure, but as long as it's predictable.
Right. And then you have the cleaner,
who thrives in the unpredictable.
Grover describes the cleaner as, the cleaner is never the first person you bring in. He's the last, when it's finally obvious that no one else can handle the situation. No conversation, no panic, no discussion. Cleaners are rule breakers when they have to be. They only care about the end result. When things go wrong and everyone else starts to panic, the cleaner is calm and unflappable, cool and steady, never too high or too low, never too happy or too depressed. He never sees problems, only situations to resolve, and when he finds a solution, he doesn't waste time explaining it. He just says, I got this. And when it's over and he gets the results, all the others just stand there shaking their heads in disbelief, wondering how he did it. Failure is never an option, even if it takes years. He'll find a way to turn a bad situation to his benefit, and he won't stop until he succeeds.
The ultimate problem solver.
Thriving in chaos.
But it takes a toll, right?
It does.
He talks about the dark side of the cleaner.
He says, cleaners have a dark side and a zone you can't enter. They get what they want, but they pay for it with a piece of themselves they can never get back. They've been to the top, they know what it takes to stay there, and sometimes it gives them too much time to think about what they've had to endure and sacrifice to get to the top. Most people are afraid to climb that high because if they fail, the fall will kill them. Cleaners are willing to die trying. They don't worry about hitting the ceiling or the floor. There is no ceiling, there's no floor either.
That's a heavy price to pay.
It is.
But a price they're willing to pay.
He goes on to say, cleaners can't be invented by media or hype. They're self-made, and whatever they have, they've earned it. They're never in it for the money. The worst thing a cleaner can do is sell out. He knows what he's worth, and he'll remind you if you make the mistake of forgetting. But the money is secondary to what really drives him, because here's the most important thing about a cleaner, the one thing that defines and separates him from any other competitor. He's addicted to the exquisite rush of success. His lust for it is so powerful, the craving is so intense, that he'll alter his entire life to get it. And it's still never enough. As soon as he achieves one goal, he's already setting his sights on the next one.
So it's not about external rewards for them.
It's an internal hunger.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about another concept Rover explores, the whole idea of having a dark side.
And again, he's not talking about being evil or anything like that.
Right. It's more about that raw, untamed part of ourselves.
He says, we're all born bad. Sorry, but that's the truth. Born bad, taught to be good. Look, if you're already shaking your head and frowning in disagreement, we're not going to get very far. If you want to go somewhere new, you have to open your mind, because I promise, where we're going, you've never been. Born bad, taught to be good. Or if you prefer, born relentless, taught to relent. Think about it. We're born already wired with the most basic instincts that guarantee our survival. Babies don't have to think about their needs. They don't analyze how they feel. They don't plan or decide how to get what they want. They just know instinctively that they're hungry or tired or wet or cold or hot, and they scream until they get satisfaction. Pure, pre-verbal, innate demands for immediate results. You can't argue with a baby or try to convince him he's wrong. You can't put your values on him or explain why he can't eat right now. Babies tell everyone how it's going to be, and that's how it is. They follow their instincts, they thrive, they get what they want.
He's talking about our primal instincts, a pure drive for survival.
And he argues that as we grow up,
we learn to suppress those instincts.
We conform to societal expectations.
He uses this analogy of a lion in a cage.
Oh, I remember that one.
He says, picture a lion running wild. He stalks his prey, attacking and killing at will, and then goes in search of his next conquest. That's what his lion instincts tell him to do. He doesn't know anything else. He's not misbehaving. He's not bad. He's being a lion. Now lock him up in the zoo. He lies there all day, quiet and lethargic and well-fed, but those killer instincts don't disappear. They're still there, deep inside, waiting to be uncaged. Let him out of the zoo and he goes lion again, preying and attacking. Put him back in the cage, he lies down.
He's saying we're all like that lion.
But a cage is mental.
Made up of our own limitations.
Grover says most people are the lion in the cage. Safe, tame, predictable, waiting for something to happen. But for humans, the cage isn't made of glass and steel bars. It's made of bad advice and low self-esteem and bullshit rules and tortured thinking about what you can't do or what you're supposed to do. It's molded around you by a lifetime of overthinking and overanalyzing and worrying about what could go wrong. Stay in the cage long enough, you forget those basic instincts. But they're there, right now, waiting for you to find the key to the cage so you can finally stop thinking about what you'll do if you ever get out. All that killer instinct is just waiting to attack.
It's about breaking free from those limitations.
Unleashing that potential.
He says, if that sounds complicated and confusing, let me make it simple. You have to stop thinking. It's so basic. Are you good at what you do? Maybe even great at what you do? Can you be the best? Yes. If you said no, I'll give you a moment to change your answer. Again, can you be the best? Of course you can. Then why are you still questioning your ability to do it? Quick answer. Because at some point, you made something simple into something complicated, and you stopped trusting yourself.
Simplify. Believe in yourself.
And he talks about how overthinking can actually hold us back.
Get in our own way.
He uses the example of like a golf lesson.
Okay.
Where you start with a natural swing,
Right.
but then you overthink it and you lose that natural ability.
Thinking too much.
He says, anytime you take natural instinct and try to change it, you're going to have a problem. You can build on it, add to it, improve it, but you cannot tame it. There's a difference between training and taming. You can train people to reach higher and be better and go further than they would on their own, but taming means training them to be something less. As the boxer Leon Spinks once said, when asked what he does for a living, I knock motherfuckers out. That's it. Simple. You don't mess with it, alter it, teach it to be something different. That's natural instinct. Leave it alone.
Trust your instincts.
He's reminding us that we already have what we need.
It's already inside of us.
He says, everything you need is already inside you. You were born with the tools you need to succeed. You don't have to think about using them. They're always working.
He uses the example of reflexes.
Don't have to think about them.
Just react.
He says, that's how I want you to envision instinct. No thinking. Just the gut reaction that comes from being so ready, so prepared, so confident that there's nothing to think about. If you're driving and suddenly the car ahead of you slams on its brakes, do you pause to consider all your options or stop to ask for advice? No, you slam on the brakes. No thinking, just action. When you just know, you can act.
Be prepared. Trust your gut.
He says, whether you're playing a sport or running a business, it's the same concept. You don't need to schedule a meeting to discuss a decision. You just make the decision. Your instincts become so finely tuned that you have a reflexive response that allows you to attack without thinking.
Mastery.
He says, in other words, you're in the zone. Go back to that quiet, dark, peaceful place inside you and understand why I keep talking about shutting things out and not overthinking and not caring about what anyone thinks. You're performing, you're not thinking. The two cannot exist together.
It's that flow state, right, where everything just clicks.
You're completely in the moment.
And Grover believes that ability to get in the zone, that's crucial for reaching that peak performance.
And he even talks about using music.
Oh yeah, like a soundtrack for your success.
Playing songs that evoke those positive memories.
Take you back to a time when you felt unstoppable.
Music can be so powerful in shaping our mental state.
But it's not just about creating that internal environment.
What else?
Grover also talks about shutting out the external distractions.
Oh, absolutely. Like tuning out the noise.
He describes Michael Jordan's ability to block everything out.
The crowd, the media.
Even personal tragedies.
Nothing could face him.
Like he had this invisible shield.
And it's not just those physical distractions.
Right, there's the mental ones too.
Those negative thoughts.
Those self-doubts.
That can sabotage our performance.
It's about developing mental toughness.
Grover mentions how he would sometimes give his athletes a note to read before a game.
Interesting.
Just a few words to help them clear their minds.
Like a mental reset button.
A reminder of their capabilities.
And that's something we can all do.
We all face pressure.
Distraction.
The key is learning how to cope.
You know, one thing that really stands out about Grover's message.
What's that?
This idea that relentlessness is a choice.
It's not about talent.
Or luck.
It's a decision
to push yourself every single day.
to never settle.
And it's not an easy choice.
It takes discipline,
Sacrifice.
but the rewards are worth it.
It's about reaching your full potential.
Living an extraordinary life.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Relentless,
The question for you is,
are you ready to make that choice
are you ready to embrace the relentless mindset?
and unlock your unstoppable potential?
That's it for this deep dive. We hope you found these insights valuable.
And remember, relentlessness is a choice. The power to choose is yours.